Otis and the tribe are standing at the edge of a roaring, freezing river. They need to get to the other side. But there is a problem. There are two possible paths. One path is a shallow crossing, but it takes them miles out of their way through thick, miserable brush. The other path is a slippery bridge made of a fallen tree right in front of them, but the water beneath it is violent and full of jagged rocks. Nobody knows which one to take. The tribe stops. Everyone looks at each other in total silence. There is a heavy, awkward pause as 50 human beings try to silently calculate the odds of survival. Then, one guy steps forward. He doesn't ask for opinions. He doesn't pull out a chart showing the risk to reward ratio of wet rocks. He simply points his wooden spear toward the fallen tree. And he starts walking. Otis watches this happen. And then he watches something even stranger. Without a single word of debate, the entire tribe falls into line right behind him. Otis looks around, completely bewildered. Why are we listening to this guy? Nobody voted for him. Nobody asked him to be in charge. He has no map. He has no credentials. He has absolutely no evidence that this log won't snap in half and send them all into the freezing rapids. He is, however, walking very confidently. And apparently that was enough. Otis follows the group across the log, gripping the wet bark, trying not to look down at the rushing water, and wondering something that psychologists and anthropologists would spend the next several centuries trying to figure out. Why do humans do this? Why do we naturally, almost instinctively, surrender our own decision-making power to someone else? Why do we follow leaders? Over the next few weeks, Otis begins to notice a pattern. Every time the tribe faces a problem, a strange social gravity pulls the group behind one specific person. There are no formal elections in the prehistoric world. There are no campaigns, no crowns, and no political debates. But leadership emerges anyway. It happens organically, almost like a reflex. Congratulations. Otis has discovered politics. But the question remains, why? Why is the human brain wired to look for a boss? To understand this, we have to look at what happens when the tribe is forced to make a decision under extreme pressure. One afternoon, the sky suddenly turns a deep, bruised purple. The air gets heavy. The temperature drops 10 degrees in 5 minutes. The smell of ozone fills the forest. A massive, violent thunderstorm is about to break right over their heads. The tribe is exposed in an open field. Panic immediately sets in. Some people want to run toward the trees. Some people want to crouch in the tall grass. Some people want to sprint back the way they came. If everyone acts on their own individual instinct right now, the tribe fractures. They scatter. Some will get lost, some will freeze, and some will be picked off by predators hunting in the rain. But then one person yells over the wind. He points toward a rocky ravine in the distance. In there! Instantly, the debate is over. The panic crystallizes into action. The entire tribe sprints together, moving as a single, coordinated organism into the safety of the rocks, just as the hail starts falling. When information is severely limited and the cost of making a bad decision is death, uncertainty is your worst enemy. Following someone who appears to know what they are doing instantly deletes that uncertainty. It is a psychological shortcut. The tribe doesn't need the absolute perfect plan. They just need a plan. And they need to execute it together. Now, it would be easy to assume that the person who yelled and pointed was just the biggest, most aggressive man in the tribe. We have this modern pop culture stereotype of the prehistoric alpha male, the guy with the biggest muscles who punches everyone else until they do what he says. But leadership in the real ancient world was not a permanent dictatorship based on bench press strength. It was highly fluid. A few months later, the brutal summer arrives. It hasn't rained in weeks. The rivers dry up into cracked mud. The tribe is severely dehydrated. The strongest hunter in the group stands in the center of the camp, flexing his muscles. He is incredibly tough. He can throw a spear through a moving boar. But Otis realizes very quickly, you cannot punch a drought. Right now, muscle is completely useless. Instead, the tribe turns their attention to someone else. An old, quiet woman with deep wrinkles and gray hair slowly stands up. She grabs her walking stick. She doesn't yell. She doesn't flex. She just starts walking toward a completely random patch of dry, dead grass near the edge of a valley. She stops, drops to her knees, and begins digging in the dirt with her bare hands. The strongest hunter drops his spear and immediately gets on his knees to dig right beside her. Otis digs too. Why? Because she has something far more valuable than physical dominance. She has a mental map. She lived through a drought 20 years ago. She remembers where the underground springs are hidden. In small human groups, leadership wasn't about dominating people. It was about utility. You follow the best hunter during a hunt. You follow the oldest memory during a drought. You follow the calmest voice during a crisis. Leadership was a tool, and the tribe passed that tool to whoever was most useful in that exact second. But here is where the story gets uncomfortable. Because the human instinct to follow is so strong, it has a dark side. What happens when the tribe follows the wrong person? A few weeks later, the tribe is trying to navigate through a dense, foggy jungle. The ground is getting wet and squishy. The man at the front of the pack, the guy who usually knows the way, points directly into a dark, foul-smelling, leech-infested swamp. Otis looks at the swamp. It smells like rotting eggs. He can literally see mosquitoes swarming in thick black clouds. Otis thinks to himself, this is a terrible idea. This guy has absolutely no idea where he is going. Otis knows it. The guy next to him knows it. But then, an amazing thing happens. The leader steps into the knee-deep mud. The person behind him follows. The person behind them follows. And Otis sighs, pulls his animal skin tight, and marches right into the miserable, freezing mud with everyone else. Why? Why do humans voluntarily obey terrible leaders even when they know the plan is going to fail? Because humans are social animals. We evolved in an environment where social isolation meant certain death. To disagree with the leader is to disagree with the group, and disagreeing with the group means risking being left behind. But it's deeper than just peer pressure. Psychologists know that humans constantly use other people's behavior as a compass. If Otis sees 40 people walking confidently into a swamp, a tiny voice in his ancient brain overrides his own logic. It whispers, they must know something you don't. If 40 people are doing it, it must be the right move. We are wired to conform because historically sticking with the group, even if the group was wrong, was mathematically safer than wandering off alone. But how did that guy get everyone to walk into the swamp in the first place? If he didn't know the way, why did people trust him? To understand this, we have to look at the most entertaining and occasionally the most dangerous human social hack. Otis watches two hunters arguing over which direction to track a herd of deer. Person A is an observant, analytical hunter. He looks at the bent grass. He checks the wind. He frowns. He says quietly, the tracks are faint, but based on the wind direction, I think we should probably go left. It's the most logical path. Person B doesn't look at the grass. He doesn't check the wind. Person B simply puffs out his chest, points aggressively to the right, and shouts, "The deer are this way! Follow me!" The tribe immediately turns right and follows Person B. Otis looks at Person A. Person A just shrugs. Otis knows for a fact that Person B has absolutely no evidence. He didn't even look at the ground. But he sounded certain. And, unfortunately, confidence is extremely persuasive. In the messy, chaotic, prehistoric world, people didn't have time to run a peer-reviewed scientific study on every decision. They looked for social signals. When someone speaks with absolute, unwavering confidence, the human brain automatically processes that confidence as competence. Otis doesn't know who is mathematically correct, but one of them sounds like he definitely knows the answer, and apparently, that matters more than the actual facts. At this point, you might be thinking that humans are just gullible, easily manipulated sheep. But that isn't entirely fair. Following someone is not an act of stupidity. In fact, following might be one of the smartest, most highly advanced survival strategies humans ever developed. Think about it. If every single person in the tribe had to personally taste every single berry in the forest to figure out which ones were poisonous, half the tribe would die in a week. Copying other people saves an immense amount of time, calories, and lives. If you see someone successfully hunting a mammoth, you don't try to invent a new way to hunt a mammoth. You just do exactly what they do. Furthermore, coordination is often vastly more important than individual brilliance. If 50 people follow a mediocre plan together, they can still build a shelter, hunt an animal, and defend themselves. If 50 geniuses all refuse to follow each other and try to execute 50 brilliant individual plans, they will all freeze to death alone in the dark. Following isn't a weakness, it is the social glue that allowed a physically weak, hairless ape to conquer the entire planet. But eventually, the dynamic has to shift. The sun is going down. The tribe is completely lost in a jagged mountain range. The wind is howling. The freezing cold is starting to bite at their fingers. The usual leaders have stopped walking. They are looking around in quiet panic. The confidence is gone. The loudest voices are silent. Everyone is standing in the snow, waiting. Otis looks around, then he recognizes a very specific jagged rock formation. It looks exactly like a crushed skull. Otis remembers this rock. He hid from a pack of wolves here 5 years ago. And more importantly, he remembers that just 50 yards over that ridge, there is a deep, dry cave that blocks the wind. Otis looks at the strong hunter. The hunter doesn't know. He looks at the loud, confident guy. The confident guy is shivering. Otis hesitates. He hates the spotlight. He likes being safely in the middle of the pack. But it is getting dark. Otis raises his arm. He points a single finger toward the ridge. The guy next to him turns and looks. Then, that guy takes a step behind Otis. The mother carrying her child takes a step behind him. The strong hunter nods and moves in behind them. Suddenly, the entire tribe is standing behind Otis, waiting for his first step. Otis looks at the 50 faces staring at him in the freezing wind, and he realizes something profound. Oh no. He has spent his entire life wondering why humans follow leaders. Now, he has accidentally become one. As he leads the tribe over the ridge and into the warmth of the cave, Otis realizes the final, deepest truth about leadership. It isn't about power. It isn't about ego. It isn't about having the loudest voice. It is about trust. In that freezing snow, those 50 people handed Otis their lives. They surrendered their independence because they believed that his judgment would keep them alive until morning. Leadership is a burden. You probably think you make your own decisions. You think you are independent. You think you navigate the modern world entirely on your own logic. Most of the time, you do. But think about what happens when the fire alarm goes off in a crowded building, or when a group project at work completely falls apart, or when a sudden crisis hits your family. When you are scared, confused, or uncertain, the ancient programming kicks in. You look around. You see what everyone else is doing, and somewhere in that panicked crowd, you are scanning the faces, looking for the one person who isn't freaking out, the person who seems to know what happens next. You use the exact same social machinery that Otis used in the freezing mud. The environment changed. We built cities and smartphones and airplanes. But the human brain did not change nearly as fast. Otis didn't invent leadership. He just discovered something humans would keep doing for hundreds of thousands of years. Because no matter how advanced we get, the rule of the tribe remains exactly the same. When nobody knows where to go, someone eventually points. If this video helped you understand yourself a little better, please leave a like and subscribe. It helps the channel more than you know. Take care and see you in the next one.